Hey guys, and welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Since its launch 2 years ago, the Acer Predator X34 has been one of the best gaming monitors on the market. It's so good that I use it as my personal monitor for gaming and video production because I love that combination of a 34-inch 21.9 3440 by 1440 display with 100Hz maximum refresh rate, G-Sync, and even great color accuracy for a gaming monitor. But this new monitor from Acer, an upgraded version of the X34, is even better in almost every way. It's called the Predator X34P, and it could be the perfect monitor to tide us over before the HDR-capable X35 finally hits the market. And a big shout out to PC Case Gear for providing the X34P for our review. I'll chuck a link to them below, as I believe they're the only retailer in Australia with this monitor at launch, so big shout out to them. As an interesting note, the X34P has received its fair share of launch troubles. This monitor was actually unveiled all the way back at Computex 2016, so it's taken a long time for the new panel in this display to become ready for mass production. And yes, there is a new panel in the X34P. It retains the same 34-inch size and 3440 by 1440 resolution as the original X34, but it now comes with 100Hz refresh rate as standard, with the ability to easily overclock up to 120Hz. Previously, the X34 came as a 60Hz monitor with a 100Hz overclock, though some buyers couldn't hit 100Hz stably due to flickering. The X34P solves this entirely. It offers native 100Hz with that nice boost up to 120Hz in most cases. And my retail unit had no problems hitting that 100Hz barrier, and I hope this is the case for others as well. The other main change to the panel is a more aggressive curve. It moves from 3600R to 1900R. I'm not a massive fan of curved displays, but the X34 is so wide that the increased curvature actually improves the experience. With the new 1900R curve, the edges are just slightly more in your field of view, which I like to think helps me gun down foes more easily in games. I guess the truth is I'm probably just as mediocre as before, but you know, I've got a fancy new monitor to look at, I guess. Most other display specs are the same. IPS technology, 300 nits maximum brightness, a 1000:1 native contrast ratio, 4 millisecond grey-to-grey response times, 100% sRGB coverage, and of course G-Sync support. Power consumption is apparently the same too, though in my testing the X34P uses about 8 watts more power when overclocked to 120Hz and about 6 watts more at the 100Hz on both panels. The panel isn't the only aspect of the new X34P that's been upgraded. The design. It's received an overhaul that basically fixes every problem I had with the original X34. The annoying glossy plastic has been nuked in favor of plastic with a faux brushed metal finish, while all other plastic has received a subtle upgrade to a more classy design that better suits this monitor's very high price tag. Unfortunately, the chin along the bottom remains, though this is likely a byproduct of how the panel itself is designed. The good news for slim bezel fans like myself is the bezels have also shrunk marginally, with the X34P moving from 13mm to 10mm on most sides, which is a neat though minor upgrade. The stand has become more versatile as well, now supporting a greater range of height adjustment along with a new swivel support. The stand is a bit uglier from the rear as a result, but the added flexibility is certainly a nice bonus. The monitor gods have finally listened to my prayers here, as the X34P includes a directional toggle for the on-screen display rather than the awful 5-button approach of the original design. The toggle makes it so much easier to move around the OSD and make adjustments as necessary, and it's complemented by 3 other buttons for quick adjustments to the input, brightness, and display modes. There's nothing hugely revolutionary about the OSD. In here you'll find basic color controls along with overdrive settings, the overclocking option, typical features like shadow boosting and low blue light, along with additions like crosshair overlays and even a refresh rate counter. Most of the additions, I never bother using, though you might find something useful in there. The 20Hz refresh rate boost the X34P provides over the original model is interesting. It's certainly not as noticeable as the jump from 60 to 100Hz, but it's nice to get a bit of extra refresh rate headroom, especially as top-end graphics cards can push above 100 FPS at this display's resolution these days. You know, back when the X34 launched, it was much harder to hit 100 FPS at 3440 by 1440 with, you know, ultra quality settings in AAA games. But with modern cards like the 1080 Ti, this monitor's extra speed genuinely does come in handy. Acer generally makes accurate claims about the performance of their monitors, and the X34P, you know, it's no exception. Contrast ratio is around 1040 to 1, just slightly better than what is listed on the spec sheet, while peak brightness I measured at 294 nits, which is pretty close to that 300 nit mark. A contrast ratio of above 1000 to 1 is maintained throughout the brightness range too, which is good to see. Like many curved displays, the X34P does suffer from a few uniformity issues, though it's not nearly as bad as I've seen with other panels. The right side is slightly tinted yellow relative to the center, with a maximum delta E difference of 2.2 with an all-white display. This is somewhat noticeable when viewing solid colors, but for the most part I don't think you'll notice too much. Ghosting and pixel response appears near identical to the X34, which means the normal overdrive setting is, remains that ideal option for most users. The IPS panel used here is fairly quick for this sort of display technology, so ghosting is not a big issue for the most part, and viewing angles, of course, are also very good as you'd expect from an IPS panel, though contrast ratio isn't as good as you'd see from a VA display. With the new panel on board, I was curious to see how the Predator X34P stacks up in color performance, particularly as the X34 is an excellent monitor out of the box. Unfortunately, the same can't be said of the X34P, though with a few tweaks this monitor can deliver decent results. The main problem with the X34P out of the box is white balance. By default, the monitor is too warm, with a white point around 6000K and an average of 6185K. This screws with grayscale performance, as you can see, with the delta E average of 4.68 and gamma that's, it's completely wrong. On the other hand, the X34 is nearly accurate by default, with a much better CCT average that leads to a sub 1.0 delta E average in grayscale out of the box, which is a very solid result for the older monitor. Poor color temperature skews color performance in saturation and color checker tests, again producing delta E averages above 4.5. Had Acer shipped the monitor with a better color temperature, more in line with the original X34, performance would have been great, as the monitor is capable of 98.7% sRGB coverage. With the following set of tweaks in the on-screen display, you can get the Predator X34P back on track to producing great colors. Note you will have to set the gamma to 1.9 rather than the default 2.2, as the 1.9 gamma mode actually produces closer to gamma 2.2 in my testing. It's a bit strange, but that's how it is, I guess, on this monitor. The main thing to note is making these adjustments to the X34P does reduce the contrast ratio to around 830 to 1, whereas the X34 can maintain an 1100 to 1 contrast ratio with similar performance. That's a noticeable negative impact from the different display that's used in the X34P. But on a more positive note, you can achieve pretty decent performance with a few OSD tweaks. The panel doesn't perform as well as the original X34, but delta E values around 1.0 across all tests is still a very good result without performing a full calibration. Color temperature is slightly too loose at the low end, though gamma is fixed and only a few color points exceed a delta E of 2.0. Even better grayscale performance can be achieved through full calibration using SpectraCal's CalMan 5 software. In particular, the color temperature curve is flattened and grayscale performance improves to a sub 0.5 delta E. Saturation and color checker results, they're not impacted hugely with calibration in most cases. However, with delta E values near 1.0 anyway, this is a decent place to end up, especially for a gaming monitor. However, it's disappointing to see the X34P unable to match the X34 at any stage. When fully calibrated, my X34 achieves sub 0.5 results across all tests while maintaining a decent contrast ratio. It's unlikely anyone would be able to tell the difference between this and the results put up by the X34P, but it's clear the older panel is slightly better from a color performance standpoint, and more importantly, comes better calibrated out of the box. This leaves the X34P in an interesting place. It's it's better than the X34 in most ways. It supports a higher refresh rate, it's more curved, and the stand is more flexible with a better design across the board. However, it doesn't reach the same levels of color performance. It is only a small difference after a few OSD tweaks, but those that want the best looking 1440p ultrawide are slightly better served by the older X34. To be clear though, both displays do deliver great color performance, and the things I'm talking about here will be nitpicks for most buyers. If you want a fast, high resolution ultrawide with a great IPS display, the X34P gives you exactly that while providing a higher refresh rate and a better design than its predecessor. It's a great proposition for gamers, in particular due to that new 120Hz refresh rate. Pricing for this monitor, it is pretty interesting. In Australia, the X34P sits at $1,700, which was the original launch price for the X34 that is, since trickled down to around $1,300. That's a significant price difference, and I suspect we'll see something similar in the US, where the X34 is currently available there for around $1,000, and when the X34P goes on sale, I reckon it'll most likely be around $1,300. In time, no doubt the X34 will be phased out and the X34P will take its place, at which point you won't really have to think about which to buy. But right now, with both monitors in the market, it's a tough choice. Is the extra 20 Hz of refresh rate and new design worth $400? I'd say probably not at this stage, though I'm not sure how long the cheaper X34 will be around for. Either monitor is a great option in the end though, and if you choose to spend the extra cash on the superior X34, you won't be disappointed. 1440p high refresh ultra-wide gaming is pretty bloody awesome if you can stomach that high price of admission. And that's it for this look at the Acer Predator X34P. This monitor should be available worldwide shortly, but those of us in Australia can, I guess, skip the queue and purchase one right now from PC Case Gear. I think they might be one of the only retailers in the world with these monitors at the moment, so it could be a bit of a world exclusive for them. Anyway, big shout out to PC Case Gear for sending this monitor out. Links to them in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.